Well, I mean, how does one follow that? I didn't understand a word of that, but I could have listened to it all morning. I did try once to speak in Arabic at the Grand Prix of watchmaking, and I will not torture the language any further. I want people to at least halfway understand what I'm talking about. The panel is an august one that we have here. Ali Nael, extremely young man, extremely rich, extremely successful, professional contrarian, lives in Singapore, sells watches, collects watches, and cherishes anything under a 35mm case. Claude Sfeir needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. King of the world, a man who cheated death and is back from the dead because it wasn't his time yet, thank goodness, because he adds character, charm, kindness, and warmth to our industry. Mohammed, again, I only met Mohammed a couple of days ago, really, wasn't it?
Yes.
But we were already enjoying our discussions about, well, have you launched the great excitement that we were talking about yet or not?
This evening, hopefully.
There is something so exciting this evening, I tell you, can't keep it secret, but I will have to. But trust me, even if you don't know what it does, you will want it. I love my Patek. I'm Nick Foulkes, by the way. I'm not the chairman of Breitling South Africa. Unfortunately, I was still resting when the introduction to the chief of Breitling South Africa was mentioned. But I'd like to make it clear that if there were a branch of my company in South Africa, I'd be proud to be president of it. But luckily, I'm not so commercially developed. I love my Patek. What does it do? I quite like myself, but I really don't know what I do. But I don't understand. If you don't understand the question, let me unpack it a bit in my broken English. Brands are things that we love. Watches are things that we love. The power of the two together can be quite dangerous. There is a saying in English that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And there is also another saying in English that ignorance is bliss. And Claude taught me a wonderful saying the other day called, put the donkey where he is happy. And if the donkey is happy to walk into a shop and ask for a Nautilus and be disappointed, I think that is fantastic. Or if the donkey wants to pay $500,000 to own something that he doesn't know what it does, and that had he been interested in the first place, he could have bought it for £25,000 if he were doing it properly. Let him be happy, you know? Because I think watches, we don't need them. They are about being happy. They are about enjoyment. And if the donkey enjoys a watch without really knowing what he does, he looks at it. I don't know if you've seen the film 2001, but they pick up a bone or a stone and they look at it and they marvel at it. This is wonderful. Let us all agree. And I bet you love having people like that. Because in London, I would be very proud when people would come into a watch shop on a Saturday morning, clutching something I'd written in the Financial Times saying, I want this. And they would say, what is it? I said, I don't know, but I want it. And you get that, don't you? And you tease them by saying, what do you say to them? You say, if you can tell me what it is, I'll sell it to you.
Well, it's been 2 interesting years, I would say, Nick. The demand for watches has suddenly boomed. And as you mentioned, and I'm sure my colleagues here, my friends would agree, is everyone wants everything without knowing what they are. I had a friend yesterday telling me, I would like to have a demanded watch. I said, but do you like it?
That's brilliant. That's such a good request, isn't it? It's so good.
Which one do you want? Anything.
That's fantastic. I just love people. Where do these people exist?
In Dubai.
Oh, what a great country. I mean,
well, today in the world.
Loving this country. It's another reason for loving it.
Well, it's difficult to get anything if you don't like it. You cannot live with someone and you don't like the person. You cannot be around people that you don't feel comfortable with. Why to buy a watch just because Mr. X, Mr. Y, Miss X, Miss Y are wearing it or having it? Get what you like.
Yes, if Mr. Z has it, then you really want to know.
Then it's
not
different.
X or Y.
Yes.
Claude's story, I was insistent. By the way, we're missing Danny Govberg today. He had an attack of vertigo. And I know how debilitating that is because I'm prey to almost all maladies known to man at some stage or another. So I understand and I sympathize with him. But we are lucky. I insisted on having Claude in this panel because his story is a marvelous, I mean, talk about a narrative arc. This is one of those narrative arcs that goes to the moon. He started his watch career with a hammer, didn't you?
Yes, in Dubai in 1980.
And he would take a watch such as the one I'm wearing, an 1803, maybe with a nice finish on the.
This one, the bracelet, one to the well.
Of course.
The bracelet.
And then he would start working on it with a hammer.
Yes.
So he would take this watch that he didn't know what it was, he didn't know what it did, but he just knew that the gold was worth something. So he started hitting it with a hammer until all the mechanical parts were broken.
Everything.
And disposed of.
Everything with the hammer to take out the gold, to weld it in the night, and to take money in the second day.
And imagine if that had been the extent of his engagement with watches. First of all, there would be a great many fewer vintage watches on the market, considering the number you were getting through every day.
Before many watches come. And I start buying new watches from the grandfather of Mohammed since 1979. So it was a normal precision for $80 around, 280 dirham. I still have the watch with the box and the papers. And all these watches that we break, I still have maybe some crown, some hands.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and some bezels with diamonds. Also, we remove the diamonds, also to take out the gold. Only the gold. We need the gold.
I mean, this must have been an amazing time. What was the nicest watch you destroyed?
Don't say it.
Say it.
The problem was not the watches. The problem, we get some Daytonas with some logos from Oman and from Emirates, and we use some kerosene, to remove the logo.
Of course you did. I mean, honestly, why would you want this watch? Because it's disgraceful with this.
Nobody want the logo at that moment. No one need the logos. In Mohammed office, there is some eagle with plenty of dials, Daytona's dials, with the logos. Nobody need those logos. Everybody want to change the dial and put a normal dial. So the watch at that moment was like $2,000-$3,000. Maybe 10,000 dirham, and now the watch is $1 million, $2 million.
And what was Ali? I want to bring you in because you came to this. I mean, I started buying watches when I was a kid in the 1970s. You started buying them when you were a kid in around about 2009, 2010. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I was about 22. Yeah, 22. I stopped buying watches. Maybe after I got my first bonus at work, I didn't know what to do with the money, so. First watch, second watch, and I got hooked.
What was the first watch?
It was an IWC, Portuguese. Yeah.
Did you know what it was and what it did?
Yeah, definitely, because I planned to buy it. Yeah.
Oh, you planned. You planned. I mean, I think most people, I don't know if they planned or not, but I think I think you've seen the different ways people come into the world of watches. I came in by accident, as I come into most things. You came into it by birth. You came into it by...
From the jewelry side.
From the jewelry side, let's say, with the hammer. And you came into it by planning.
By planning, yeah.
But I think what we have all done, whether consciously or unconsciously, is become engrossed with the topic. And I mean, it's not so much about disparaging people who come in and buy something just because somebody else has liked it. But I think it's about understanding not just what the watch does, but why it does it, how it does it. And I think that the watch is almost a proxy for a sort of greater understanding of the world. I mean, time is, I think, what makes us human. It allows things not to happen all at once. Timepieces are what make us happy. We don't need them, but we each see in them, I think everybody in this room sees in them a reflection of what their happiness is in a mechanical form. Yep. So, I mean, I think at the basic form, if you love your Patek, what it does is it makes you happy. But I think there's why it makes you happy.
At this moment, it makes you happy because you buy it at 30,000, and you can sell it at 500,000.
If you have
They
a
make them
donkey.
happy because they're making money.
You have to find the donkey first, though.
The donkey is the guy who sell the watch. Because the happiest is the customer who sell the watch. In each family now, there is somebody who sell. There
Everyone is a trader.
Yeah, everyone, maybe 99% of the families now, no more collector. 1% is collector and 99% is sellers. They are selling, they are trading. They're trading the watch.
Because Ali, you started as a collector.
Yeah.
And now you have a very, what is the word, demanded or reputed or whatever, a business, don't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
correct.
are you an
yeah,
opinion
two-tone
leader?
vintage. Yeah, I started as a collector because this is really my passion, from the start. It was my gateway, to forget work, to forget the stress of work. Like you read a book or, you're interested, any hobby, that you might have. My hobby was to collect the watches, but also to meet people, go to auctions, meet Claude long time ago. The community is very important, the collecting community, what got me really into this. Watches was my exit plan, so I don't retire too early.
And Mohammed, what was your first experience of the watch world, and when was your first Damascene understanding that this was a great way of life, if it is a great way of life?
Well,
A book.
for me, it was since childhood, since I was 4 or 5 years old. My father was getting me Swatch watches, and I was. Being a child, I wasn't wearing the watches. I was collecting them, and I still have them. So I have Swatch watches from 1983. I was 5 years old, and I kept them. I never wore them. Okay, I had few that I wore, and I had few that I was keeping them aside. And I still have them. For me, a watch is passion. Each watch I have has a story, whether I buy them myself, whether my wife gifts them to me.
Lucky you.
Yes.
Must introduce me to your wife later.
Yes, she's sitting here. Whether Claude advises me to get something, but again, I end up getting something that I want, not because of the hype of the market. My situation is a bit difficult because I'm a retailer as well. I work for a retail company, and unfortunately, I cannot get everything.
You can get most things. You can get most things, I'm sure.
Well, no, not really.
And by the way, that Patek I was talking about with the green dial and the steel one, I think it's called a shell. It's named a Nautilus. Is that right?
Never heard of it.
No, but whatever it does, I want it. But Ali, you say that with your thing, you classify the customers into 3 groups. Is that right?
Maybe now more.
Maybe more. Maybe there's more categories, but...
Well, there's the guy with the hammer who comes in, who wants to smash the screen. One. That's one guy. So what are your 3 types?
I think the investor, the speculator, if you want. Maybe the follower is the second, and the collector. That's how I classify, collectors usually. A lot of people come in with passion, but they can exit very fast, So they didn't get the chance to become a collector. Sometimes they get turned off with, some things. Maybe they can't get what they want, or things become too expensive. So they come in very interested to become serious collectors, and they exit. So you can categorize as, let's say as an investor speculator today. Like Claude said, there's a very big chunk. Maybe 2-3 years ago it wasn't that big. Maybe it was a few, a smaller percentage. But today that percentage grew quite big. But also part of these speculators have the chance, will be the future collectors for sure. They have the potential to be the serious collectors.
What do you think sets apart, as a mindset, the collector from the speculator? Apart from... tell me what your thoughts are.
Honestly, it's education. It's always about education. If you're interested in the subject, you're reading about it, you fall in love with a certain, design, case, movement. I think a collector can also have only one piece or 2 piece or 3 piece, but they understand what they have. They know exactly what they want. I think that's the key for the difference.
Claude, you're one of the great collectors and one of the great characters. How would you put the difference between, say, a speculator and a collector? What would that be, the difference for you?
The problem with collectors if you give him any price for his watch, he never sell.
Correct.
And the other people, they buy the watch from the store and they go in the same time to sell it in the gold souk, in everywhere, I mean in Dubai. But everywhere is the same. Some people are only specialized in this thing, you know. They buy the watch and they sell the watch in the same day and they get some more money, even if they are in the blacklist. The guy who sold this Patek, the steel Patek with the green dial in Monaco, you know, the agent has closed already, and the guy is blacklisted. But he made $400,000 in 1 day, 2 days.
Yes.
You know, he bought the watch at 30,000. He sold at 490,000. So it's very, very open, and it wasn't good. And I don't think he's a collector. You know, I don't think these people are collector. Last 3-4 years, as it said, everything has changed, and especially for independent brands, especially for Patek and Rolex, the prices raised too much. You know, the price is, some watches are like 10 times more. Even Richard Mille, you can see for the crystal one, it was like 1 million to buy, to sell 1.2, 1.3. Now it's 4 million to buy and 4.5 to sell. A crazy price.
I mean, this is terrifying. I'm not...
It's a crazy price for 4 or 5 brands. Audemars Piguet.
Audemars Piguet, but that's one model. Unless you're... I love the idea that maybe people are beating your door down for 1159s. Then you must say, yes, please. You don't know what this watch does? No, that's excellent. I mean, sorry, it's a fantastic timepiece, of course.
Yeah.
Forgive me. No, the 1159. But I mean, you're right. It's targeted, isn't it?
Targeting, and if you see last auction week in Geneva, you see the only watch auction, how it does. It was so crazy. The prices, even for independent, with Philips, with Christie's, with everybody, the prices was unbelievable. You know, for FV Journe, the set, the full set, number one, was sold for 80,000 in 2000. Yes. You give the money, and after the tourbillon was like 28,500. The resonance was 17,500. So, and all the set was 80,000. The empty box sold for 100,000.
People are
and the
empty box.
Yeah, and the set sold for 10 million. Yeah,
you know, I've got a couple of King Midas boxes. What are they worth?
Too much, especially from you. It was too much.
but the cork box and the moon box, all these. I mean, there was a post on, I think, Patekaholic, where he did one of his wonderful mathematical things, where there was a reference of Nautilus.
Yes.
He calculated the sale price of that recently, multiplied it by the number produced, and then calculate this was worth something like 2.7% of the market capitalization of Barclays Bank.
It was during the anniversary, I think, the 2 watches of the anniversary. So they made 700 and 1,300, and he calculated the 2,000 watch by dollars, how many dollars, and it was like 200 million, something like this.
Yes, the entire sort of gross national output of Japan or something like that.
But at that moment it was 200, but now it's like 1 billion.
Even more.
1 billion, it's times 5.
I mean, which is this, I mean, what I wanted to try and understand is nobody can tell where this is going. But is it good? Is it bad? Or is it just the way things are?
Is it good? And now it's become much more better than the arts. Because the arts is 1 meter, huh?
Yes.
Mohammed?
Yes. And
now the FV Journe and Dufour and this is, and Patek is 3 centimeter. 3 centimeter for 4 million. So 1 meter is how much?
So if you take the
200 million
per square,
so it's now became much more important
than the
painting. I've done this
calculation with Picasso before now, on the sort of per centimeter squared of the canvas. And I think you're right. I think Patek is overtaking.
I don't know if Patek. Some independent now
Patek, AP, Rolex, and many of the independents.
But Ali, tell me, I mean, you're in the business of this. How do you, first of all, as a collector, how can you bear to let things go if you buy them for the shop? And secondly, if you let them go, doesn't that mean that they are inferior to what you have? How do you make that kind of adjustment personally yourself?
Honestly, I buy every watch as if I'm buying it for myself. You know, that's give me less stress and less worry. So every watch I have is actually, you know, I'm willing to keep it for myself. I think Claude do the same thing. I think that's the first rule. Going back to the earlier subject, I think 10 years ago, Claude might agree, we used to call them flippers. they flip because they have limited funds. Maybe they can limit their collection to 10 pieces, and when they want something else, they flip the watches and they buy something else. Today is completely different. I think the purchase power is also completely different.
Tell me what's different. Because flipping is a well-known phenomenon. People selling their spaces on car waiting lists. People flipping art when they buy it from the primary to secondary market. What has changed about flipping? Because it's not. Oddly enough, now you mention it, it's not a term that I have heard being used in watches in the last 18 months.
I think it's because everyone have to work very hard to make their money at the end of the day. So they flip the watches to make some return, and they exchange it for something bigger. I think trading was a word that we use a lot. You trade up, So basically, you have a watch that's worth 50,000, and you want to trade it up for something that is 100,000. That was a big part of the watch business, but today, I think the purchase power is completely different. Everyone sees the watches as an investment, so they want a return. I think Mr. Mohammed also agreed that everyone's saying how much is going to be. This is the worst part of our business today. But I think we have to stay true to ourselves and advise our clients to buy what we like, because we have to stand behind it as well in the future.
And I think would you not agree, Mohammed, that there's a great confusion these days between price and value? I'm talking about what something costs us to, not necessarily what it's worth on a monetary basis, but what its intrinsic value as an object is.
Yes, it's because of the high demand on watches, everyone has become an expert. So you have clients coming to us and saying, the Nautilus sells for $30,000, but it costs the factory $1,000.
That much?
That much, you see?
Much.
Why it went so high, this watch?
It's because of the hype. It's because of the people creating the demand and the rumors.
The rumors said that they will stop the production of this watch in 2 months, before end of the year. That's why everybody's dying to get this watch. The green one, especially the green one. And the green one with diamond, same like Mohammed, my wife watch. Very few watches of this, because stainless steel and diamond.
No, she's wearing the platinum.
The platinum today also much more important.
The platinum with the green dial, everybody. That's the one you want. The platinum with the green dial and the garnet bracelet. And but there is so much crap talked about watches. And I'm guilty of talking a lot of that crap myself. Not as much as some people, but there's a lot of nonsense. When you say it cost the factory $1,000 to make, first of all, what does that mean? You have a business, and this is where I think the lack of understanding really bothers me, because you have a business that by various historical accidents and various talented leadership and through its history, its tumultuous history, has become what it is today. So you're not just paying for a set of industrial procedures. You're paying for something that you can't price, but you can value.
Yeah.
It is, at the end of the day, there is a lot of time given by watchmakers to create these timepieces. And today, it's important, and one of the biggest thing, and we thank the Dubai Watch Week team, Hind especially, to have the platform of Dubai Watch Week to educate people about how difficult it is to produce a watch. It's not just a machine that's printing watches. They go through research and development. They go through a lot of effort and work to produce these watches, to sell them as art pieces, and not only as an investment product.
They're not just Malthusian units of production or something like this.
No.
But they are, I think the unique, Claude highlighted, there's a combination of factors that have made this so exciting. First of all, you have something that I believe is, and I talk here in gender stereotyping terms quite freely, men quite like statistics, whether it's cars, whether it's football statistics, whether it's, and watches have statistics. They can have a high frequency, they can have a number of components. There's any number of statistics you can pull out, which I think is dangerous, because people will come into the shop. You either get the idiot who comes in saying it cost $1,000 to make, I don't know what it is, but I want it because it's in demand. And you've got the person who comes in saying it's got 373 components, a beryllium this, temperature, thermo-adjusted that, and again, you have the no knowledge and this kind of mad, myopic knowledge that, again, kills the pleasure. I mean, we should try and remember that this isn't a business.
The problem, there is no pleasure anymore, because everybody's want the watch that will sell more later. They come only to ask you something like this. Nobody want to complete his collection. Nobody want to buy. They want to buy the cheapest watch. And in each brand, Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, Rolex, Journe, any brand, all the cheapest watch are the most demanded. So everybody want the cheapest one. Mohammed?
Nick, I had a client walking in the store and asking for a Nautilus. And I told him, but you don't like watches. He said, yeah, but I'm building a house. I need to pay my loan. So you see where it reached to.
But the donkey might be happy with that house. I mean, maybe this is.
In Arabic, بعرفها بالعربي.
But I mean, this is something that. I mean, it. Like you say, I mean, a collector, and I mean, I suppose, I mean, I'm not a collector myself, but I have one or two bits and pieces that I quite like. And I regret, when I have sold something, I almost think about those watches more than the ones I have, which probably says something about my psychology, that I regret. I wake up sometimes and I think, shit, why did I sell that? When, of course, at the time I needed to feed the donkey or whatever the expression is. But Ali, I want to ask you this again because you strike me as somebody who is emotionally attached to these objects, and yet you have a shop and you let them go. How is that? Is that like sending a child off to the army or something like that every...
I think I was lucky because I built basically my collection before I had the business. So it's easier for me to explain to my clients, or my clients are my friends, so it's much easier because I built this collection before I started the business. Of course, as a collector, I think Claude agree, he will also collect. He will sell some watches and collect some. I think my eyes were full, at least on Patek side, where my love is. I have a full eye, so now I'm able to sell these pieces, even though I want them for myself. But at least because we treat our clients as friends, we believe that these watches will come back to us someday. So even if we're really in love with them, sooner or later, they will come back. So that's no regrets about selling watches. I can give you maybe 100 examples of regrets that I have of selling watches. But I have to live with it. And we learned over the years that even though you miss a watch or it's gone, one day you're going to find it again, or you're going to find even a better one. There's a lot of discoveries, a lot of family estates, a lot of things come to the market, and it's never ending sometimes. That's why we keep spending way too much money on watches.
Yes, thank goodness we do, otherwise the world would stop turning. Mohammed, tell me about the power of brands, because that's a big part. I mean, the title of our sort of forum says it all. I love my Patek. What does it do? What is the power of the brand, and why, when you look at an old watch from, say, 50, 60 years ago, often from famous makers, they will be virtually identical to look at it because the suppliers will have been the same suppliers, and yet one is worth X and one is worth
Z,
or even P.
The brands are today have, especially the old brands like Rolex, Patek, and Audemars, have built their image throughout the years. And they have reached to a point that everyone knows them. Rolex is amongst the top 10 brands in the world, leaving all the brands that are linked to IT today. If we take Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Ferrari, Marlboro, Rolex is one of the top 10 because they built their image since 1926 when the ladies swam from England to France wearing a watch. So that was a story, and that was a vision that Rolex had to build their identity and to have the name in the market. Today, the challenge is for the smaller independent brands. The demand is increasing, but for them to be able to survive this jungle of competition, will they be able to make it? Yes, if they follow the right guidelines. Today we see, and I always tell my boys is, some of the family members, like my father and my uncle, they witnessed some brands that were born during their era, and today they are one of the big companies. And I'm sure Claude has the same experience with some brands that were nothing, and today they're big.
Yes.
It's the same thing with the smaller brands today, the independent brands. They are today small, and they are run by a one-man show, a watchmaker who's doing everything and trying to market his product. But 50 years down the line, with the new generations that will be coming, these companies might be as big as the big ones that are existing today.
Do you think, I mean, do you think that's so, Claude? Because what I know that you are a big champion of independent watchmaking and a big creator of the modern appetite for these watches. Do you think that by becoming popular and big, they kill what it is that makes them attractive in the first place?
No, I think these last 5 years, the new generation collectors, they doesn't trust anymore the vintage because they had a lot of problems with the auction houses. And not all the auction houses, but some of the auction houses. So all these people are going, they went to the independent. They start buying independent. And from 5 years till now, what they put in the independent, if they put 100,000, now it's like 500,000 and 800,000. And sometimes if you have some dials with some stones, lapis lazuli, ruby, whatever, so you have over maybe 10 times their money, what they put. So all this new generation, especially the young people, they like the vintage Rolex. Why? Because it's very hard. You can wear it. The vintage Patek, it's very nice, but it's very delicate. You cannot wear it. You have to put it in the safe. So the old Rolexes are very, very, very important. Yes, he has many.
He went swimming in his 33 millimeter.
I don't think.
That's why. But Andy, tell me. I mean, I mean, this is what interests me about younger customers today. I mean, I have kids. One of whom is interested in watches, but he loves things from the 70s. He loves the King Midas. He loves all these strange things. What motivates the true younger collector coming into you today? What is the motivation? What do they look for?
I think it's the category that we spoke about, you know. Just to remove the investor side of it, if someone's coming and collecting, is really about emotion and attraction to the, let's say, the history, you know, maybe they have something, you know, some attraction, you know, to the brand that they want to collect. Usually, I think a lot of collectors have independents, have vintage Pateks, have Rolexes. I don't think there's a limit of someone's emotion, attraction to certain brands. You're right, you know, Pateks are not easy to wear, but if you live a formal life, they're very easy to wear. And there's also a lot of Pateks that are $5,000, $10,000. You can beat them and then be happy with it.
It's not easy or not easy, but if you scratch the watch, you cannot polish. The old Rolex, you can polish, you can do whatever you want. It's very hard.
Yeah,
that's
I don't polish.
Yeah.
That is part of the charm of a watch. Is I think also this comes from this lack of understanding sometimes of what you can expect, because you're so used to putting a watch on your wrist and forgetting about it and going running and playing golf and I don't play golf, but I mean, if I did, or play backgammon with it, is probably less dangerous. Yeah. But if you go and do these activities or go swimming, I think that, again, this is where the education comes in and where this excitement lies as well, is people, you've got this industrial character to the watch, you've got this artistic character to the watch, you've got this cultural object, you've got a bit like wine in a way, in that it comes from a certain part of the world and has cigars, of course, the best.
I think.
But so let me. I think we've still got 5 minutes of stuff before we take your extremely erudite questions. But I just wanted to understand, what should somebody know or know what to ask, or what do you think should attract them? Is it, if we can give percentages, how much of it is knowing what the watch does, how much of it is knowing the history, how much of it is knowing the value, how much of it is knowing the price, how much of it is just a sheer emotional attachment?
I think it's the journey, you know, of collecting. I think we all start with something, we end up with something, and we are willing to change, you know. So I think every collector starts with something that attracts them, maybe that their friends like, maybe that it's give them some confidence, you know. over time they get more sophisticated. You know, if their lifestyle is sports, they will be attracted with sports Rolexes. If their lifestyle is offices and meetings, you know, they want something classic. But in general, a collector should have everything, will have everything, because they went through phases in their lives, you know, that changed their taste and evolved over time. So I think Claude will relate that, and Mr. Mohammed will relate. We have watches, I think, every kind of brand and every kind of style. It's because of these phases of life that we pass through and the lifestyle that changed over time.
And are collectors changing? I mean, let's put the money part of it aside. Are people, when they get this greater knowledge, when they actually found out what the watch does, why it does it, and how it does it, are they building collections that will be much more focused?
100%.
So that
100%.
you might have somebody who because everybody, if you just say the letter QP, perpetual calendar, but then you unpack that, and you unpack the fact that they've got to align the lunar and solar calendars and compensate for the differences, and then you go back to the Julian calendar, the Gregorian calendar, all these different things, you enter a world, I think. Yep. And I think that's the joy of collecting, Claude, isn't it? You enter this world.
The problem in vintage, you have to collect the quality. You have to collect the quality, because modern watch, you buy the watch new, so the quality is number one. The vintage, you have to collect quality, not quantity. And at that time, we doesn't know how to collect, so we buy everything. Patek used to do from each design like four metal. So we are buying. Traveler time, world time, I don't know what, you find yourself with 100 watch and it worth nothing. If you buy one big watch, complication is much better. So much better for the place, much better for everything, and much easier to resell if you one day you want to resell. And to collect, it's much better to have always from vintage, Rolex and Patek always, the quality. Quality is 99%, and the quality in the dial, especially in the dial, you know. So 99% represent the dial of the watch, and 1% is the outside. Same like the painting, the frame, and the painting.
Yes.
Similar.
That's a wonderful analogy, and then you put the kerosene on top to take off. What would you say is that when the collecting is now moving into this very important phase, this very important values of things, what should people keep in mind if they want to start collecting? What if they, first of all, if they come to you and they say,
I want a Nautilus.
I want a Nautilus. This is immediately, please join the queue, isn't it? So if somebody wants to get a nice watch from you, perhaps the one that's being launched this afternoon, for example, what would they say to you that would impress you to think maybe I'll give this person the opportunity to purchase this watch?
It's, Nick, I would say it's the passion, it's the desire of having something, it's the love of having something, and the enjoyment you see in their eyes. It's like giving a kid a lollipop, and you see how excited they are. The excitement of giving someone to flip a watch might be the same, because they're going to make money. But you feel the difference between someone who is passionate about a watch and someone who is ready to trade in. So it's important to make sure that we give it to the right people. 100 watches are launched. Out of the 100, you cannot control everyone. You will have some watches that will end up in the market, which in return might be good for the brand, because we need it to create the hype, to create the demand, to do everything. But would that be the tool to promote these watches? No. We don't want that. We want people to enjoy it, to understand why the watch was made, what are the details in the watch, what is the function of the watch. Does it do an espresso? Does it change the weather?
When
does it only say the time?
On the market? You're giving too much.
2071.
I think I heard somebody's alarm go, so obviously there's something happening. Should we take some questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, are we as a community letting this snowball into the point of no return? What can we do as a community to balance things out? Because of course we have Patek, especially the Nautilus, the Royal Oak, Rolex, but then you see down there a few great brands doing exceptional stuff, and then you buy a watch, and you know that
You haven't
immediately
depended before.
when you get out of the shop that the watch will the value will be lower, as it happens when you buy a car.
I think there are two people who will know. I think all the people on this panel except me would have something to say about that. Ali, what do you think? Do you think things are getting out of hand?
It is going out of hand, but I think we only can blame all of us. You know, it's not. I think we can't really control it. You have to let the market decide at the end of the day. Maybe taste will change over time. You know, maybe when enough collectors have these watches, maybe they will stop also buying them. You know, so. This is where the marketing is today. This is where the Instagram, TikTok, just name it. This is where what everyone wants today, but doesn't mean that what everyone wants in the future. So you have to believe in that. And it's always the rule, you have to buy what you want. You know, so if you like a brand inside the tent, you know, which is amazing watches inside, you have to buy it. You know, this is something give you pleasure. It's not something, you know, to give pleasure to your friends or to your family like today, you know, most of the watches. It's giving you the pleasure. And if it goes down in value, you know, be it because you're getting much more value by wearing it, by enjoying it. So few things in life give you pleasure. If you're losing money on it, it's fine.
Ali,
You know, I think you spend on wine, on dinners, on like this much more than what you lose on a watch that give you much more pleasure.
What do you think? Do you think people will want to? Do you think people will ever stop wanting? Because I mean, I remember the time when watch collecting wasn't really a thing. It was just an eccentric activity. Are we going to go back to a time when people don't want to collect watches?
It will be the opposite.
It will be more.
It will be more and more. It will be more and more. And you will see the market, how it will be, how it will act. The problem is the supplier. You ask Mohammed, all the brands, they cannot supply. And there is, if you compare to the China or to America, how many hundred millions of people, Rolex produce 850,000, Patek 45, 50,000, Richard Mille 4,000, 5,000, for I don't know how many watches.
June 750.
Yes,
So
June 800 watch, Dufour 6 watch.
There's up production then, in that case.
it's a luxury market, yes, but
Acrivia 35 watch. Yeah.
it is a luxury market, but it is the smallest market today compared to any other market. It is a fine market which focuses a lot on quality and delivering an exceptional product at the end of the day. Yes, the brands want to make money. Yes, they want to sell to survive. But at the end of the day, they are delivering something that would stay for generations. And that is the proof of the vintage watches.
Yeah.
You have watches, we have collectors of pocket watches, and you see some watches that are 200 or 300 years old, and they're still functioning.
Yeah.
So it is
Pocket watch underestimated.
product that would stay, it is timeless at the end of the day, and it is the smallest industry today compared to cars, compared to fashion, compared to any other luxury product. It's the smallest.
It's a luxury market and it's a collectible market, which I think makes it
Easier to enjoy. You pay the money, you can enjoy your watch. You can travel with your car. You can travel with your donkey.
Your donkey, yes, the donkey market probably isn't going to go anywhere in a hurry, but you never know. I don't know if that's an answer or not, but it's probably all you're going to get this afternoon or this morning. Young lady, sorry for please.
She was the first to arrive by the way.
I know.
My question is very simple. We are talking about, at this panel, we are talking about how certain cultures have this exuberant lifestyle of spending, and we don't, most people that I know, my friends, they don't delay gratification. And I think this is the reason why there are a lot of people who spend and buy watches every quarter than those who really collect. So my question is, how would you suggest that we have education in a tasteful way, coming from my batch of technically TikTokers and Instagrammers? I wouldn't categorize myself as what my friends would do when it comes to spending, because I come from a third world country and I learned delaying gratification at an early age. So I come from, my background is I was unable to go to school since 7 years old. So from 7, I went straight into entrepreneurship and blockchain. So the key there was education. So I have not purchased my watch yet. And I want to make sure that the first watch I am buying, because this is like, I just tweeted this yesterday. I told myself, Isabella, even when you 100x your net worth, don't upgrade your lifestyle. But while I'm here, I'm learning now. I'm having education, and I need the watch for next month because I'm speaking in AdNec Blockchain World, December 15 to 17. 20,000 people, I'm scared. But thank you.
But I think that's a very interesting question, actually.
Isabella, first of all, good luck with your presentation next month. Nothing in life would make who you are except yourself. So it's not the things that we have would make us. You have suffered in your life to reach where you are today, and this is something that we have to teach our new generation about, that things are not easy, even though everything is easy now. With bitcoins, with the cryptocurrency, money is available. Everyone has money. You can go to TikTok, you can play a game. Someone was telling me about it, and you make money out of it. Okay. Build yourself, and you have been doing it. For a watch, choose the watch that fits you best, not what is promoted on Instagram or any other social media platform. Choose what is Isabella. Don't make the watch chooses you. This is my advice, and wish you all the best. We're proud to hear what you have been doing.
There are many branches of your stores in the city that she can visit open.
Yes. And we are here to support you and to drive you to the right choice, to fit you. So
you want to basically look at the damn thing and think, gosh, I'm really pleased that I have that in my life. Not that my life is that object, but that my life is slightly better for having that object in it. And that, if you can feel that when you look at it and you look at it over a period of time, then you've made the right choice.
My wife taught me a lesson early in shopping because I'm very impulsive. She said, if you want it tomorrow, you come and take it, but you sleep on it for a night. So buy what you want, what speaks to you, right? We always say, watches speak. If it speaks to you and you can't stop thinking about it, it's the right watch for you.
And then you can find out what it does later, probably.
Omar. Pass the microphone, please. عمر هلا بده يقول أسئلة. بيقويها.
Good morning. Nick, you looked very dashing.
Oh,
I think you're setting a trend. Purple dial for next year.
Yes, that's next year's plan.
Isabella actually is a good example, and she fits into my question. Because if we look at young collectors, and Ali said that when he was in his early 20s, he got a bonus and he wanted to buy a watch. So look today at somebody who's 25, okay? And he wants to buy his first Rolex. Because Rolex is the go-to watch in general. And what opportunity this young guy has if he wants the classical Submariner? How can he get it if it's not even on display? First, how can he build the connection with the Submariner? How can he try it on when some shops are empty? So it's very sad to see that there's no more emotions. And my bigger question is, for the future, not Isabella's generation, but maybe my daughter's generation, especially with the rise of digital watches, how can we sustain the love for the mechanics? How can we keep this going if the availability is not there and the technology is beating what is happening in the mechanics? And sorry, my question is to all three gentlemen and to yourself.
No, but I think that what you have to say is very, very important. But I think it ties into what you're saying about there being so much money around. Just because people are able to just because they have money, they feel entitled to go in and purchase something.
Nick, the problem is not the money. Everybody has the money.
That's it.
The problem is to find the watch.
But it's also the sense of entitlement. Just because you have the money doesn't mean that you should buy rights to be.
That's why they are buying the same watch for $1. When they have the money, they are buying in $10, the same watch. That's why they're paying premium because they have the money. They're spending the money for availability.
And creating the hype.
Yeah, yeah. And it will continue. These things continue because the supply is very suppliers. It's very slow.
But this is also helpful to other brands. I know that people will come to other brands because they can't buy a Nautilus, they can't buy a Royal Oak. So then they look for other things, and then they may start by getting it as a replacement or a substitute, but they learn to love it on its own values. But what you were saying was about the collision of the scarcity of the mechanical watches and the rise of the technical watches and the technical generation. So it's a question I'm sure you have to answer a lot, Mohammed.
Yes. The first Dubai Watch Week, we had Jean-Claude Beaver. And he brought the subject. It was when Apple watches were just launched. And one of the people who attended that forum said, how is the new launch of digital watches or smart watches would affect the mechanical industry? And he said it won't. It's making more people getting used to wearing a watch. So by time they will get used to it and they will come and buy a watch. Yes, watches are not available today. It's a struggle for us as retailers every day. And I was just telling my wife last night that we had many people that visited the cocktail last night saying that we just came to ask for watches. We have been waiting for these watches, and obviously it's the usual suspects, as Nick says. It's the Nautilus, it's the Royal Oak, it's the professional Submariner, the professional Rolexes, it's the hot pieces. But it's like an ocean. You know, you cannot just eat one type of fish.
That's a hell of a metaphor. That's fantastic. It is like an ocean, you can't eat one type of fish. Tell that to your daughter.
There are so many different options of watches that are produced. There are so many hidden gems. Yes, it's at least in the UAE, in the Middle East, it's a culture that when someone graduates or gets married, they want to get a Rolex. But we can change. We are willing to change. We are willing to change our lifestyles. Why don't we change our watches? There are many choices. So we as retailers, and with a platform such as Dubai Watch Week, and the brands with their factories and their know-how, should educate the people about what we are doing and why we are doing it and what are the technical details that we have in order to try to convince the people that it's not only 1, 2, and 3 that are hot. There are other brands that might be hot or might have a character or a soul in them.
I mean, just as there was a very interesting talk at Christie's yesterday about Universal Genève, which explained so much and the richness of a brand that you can, if you're a true collector, you can identify details, talk about stories. I mean, you know, there's a Gerald Genter watch by Universal that is worth, I don't know what the sums are, but is worth a fraction of what other Gerald Genter designs are. So, and you can learn about those. And I think this is what, I mean, I wanted to say when we started, but I got such terrible memories, just that why an event like this is so valuable and why there should be a statue on every street corner to Mr. Seddiqi, really, in this town, because you've got a whole, it just shows you what a world there is. And you can go into these stories. I mean, these people who go to the bottom of the oceans, the people who go into space, the people, all these stories, and yet we're looking at maybe 5 models of watch. So I think that the message of this forum really is that you can learn, and you can learn for the TikTok generation. If you go past the Girard Perregaux stand, for example, you see the Esmeralda, which was made for Porfirio Diaz in the late 19th century, one of the great watches of all time. You can just look at that, and then that's a visual education in itself. You can just spend 5 minutes looking at that watch and see what it was that attracted somebody 140 years ago to something. And I think that there's the answer for the next generation, is that to look at what attracted people 3 generations back, you know?
I hope you answered your question.
Of course,
Am I right?
because there's more, it's an ocean with many fish in it, provided the donkey doesn't eat them. I think.
Hi, so we've heard a lot about the kudos of wanting what is rare and cannot be had. How would you position the value of brand pedigree against Savoir Faire?
Right, that's one for you, Claude. You're the man with the hammer.
Can you repeat again the question, please?
So if you consider the rarity of an object in a watch
Yes.
as its value, its scarcity,
Yeah.
and then you look at the pedigree of brands that have a great history
Yes.
and compare that to Savoir Faire in making the watches, would you value the history and the pedigree of a brand over the Savoir Faire?
Of
Or
course.
vice versa?
Of course.
So making it and the quality of the make is less important because of the hype?
It's a longer question, very short answer, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, is the perfect answer. Ali, what do you think?
Definitely, we touch watches all the time. That's, in our opinion, worth 10 times more than they were today. So, and they're made exactly the same. I love, for example, vintage Vacherons, a lot. You cannot imagine, the amount of watches I can buy with the price of one hype watch. And these watches, the dial makers, case makers, movement makers, everybody, they are the best. So these watches today in the market, how do you value them, So you have to look at the quality. For me, I go to the quality of the piece, not only the history, but you have to combine the whole things together.
Yeah, but the most historical watches, they're not in a good quality because the people used to wear the watches. So most of historical, we have many in our collection. They're not very in high quality. You cannot have historical watch and quality in the same time. So it will be, there is no value. There is millions and millions in everything, in painting, in watches, in jewelry, in everything. You cannot have high quality and historical in the same time. This is the problem. But historical, if you collect historical, you can collect historical, even the piece, if it was broken. There was one watch long time ago for the president of India, Indira Gandhi, and it was broken. The watch was broken and sold for many millions of dollars long time ago. But it was a pocket watch and it was broken, the watch. But they want the history. They want for the museum, for the country, so they bought at any price they can buy.
I think also if you look at the branding, a brand used to be like the signature of an artist and a guarantee of quality. Now the brand has become abstract. It's just a thing that is a design device or something like that. But I think that you can't really dissociate Savoir Faire from Pedigree. They balance each other. If something isn't being well made today, or a brand isn't being well looked after, the vintage pieces that you identify will be worth much less because the brand isn't being properly looked after today. And that is not a bad thing. That's a reflection that care should be taken. Would you not agree, Mohammed?
Yes, I agree. It's important to appreciate what you're getting. As Claude said, vintage watches might not be at their best quality today, but they might have a history.
Yeah.
And that's what matters when you get a piece. And the dials are important. You might get a watch with a beautiful dial, but the mechanical details is dry, it's not working well.
There was no very too many watchmakers at that moment. Many parts of the movement was not original, many of those watches like this. But if you want to buy the historical watch for a special
for
person,
the love of it,
you have to pay for the historical way. Yeah. Well, hey, wait.
So my question is around what Ali mentioned, that new generation collectors, or any collector for that matter, has a journey to follow through life. And then, so coming from new generation collectors, we are trying to identify the journey which we want to kind of make of our collecting journey. But then we have the entire advent of the digital media and the social media and the TikTokers, etc., and even the digital media houses, which is kind of having a lot of influence as to our journey and to identify what is good, what is not good, what we can afford, what we can't afford. So my question is that what would be your suggestion or advice to the new collectors of today, that how should we balance between the two, the information overload and our own choices in the journey? And also, do you think that digital media houses have a responsibility towards younger generation collectors, because they're clearly influencing us? So they might be having a responsibility towards us as to, to kind of guide us better.
Do you mind if I answer, Ali? I would suggest the new generation and any collector, any generation, to create their own journey.
And yeah, I want to say that, yeah.
You know, to go from point A to point B, you can go in a straight line, you can go in a zigzag, you can go around it. So the best way is to educate yourself through all the influencers, all the social media, through the websites, through Dubai Watch Week, through visiting factories, and then create your own journey. And you control the way you want to go to. So this is my advice, and I hope everyone
I wanted to say, make your own trend. If you have any doubt about the trend, make your own trend, and this is very important, I think, in the journey. If you need to have one watch that makes you look good in front of your friends, buy it. Just to get rid of that feeling. Get rid of that feeling, But the next one you buy, maybe more,
Buy what you like. You buy what you like.
And buy it from Seddiqi, I think, is the answer. I think we might be...
Last question.
You're the boss. Tell me, one more question.
One more. Yeah.
Man in the suit.
Two more. No problem.
We've mentioned about buying what you like, and then also we've said about selling watches and those that you regretted. Looking back on your careers, which specific watches do you regret having not purchased? Perhaps a specific Patek or a specific watch for each of you.
Well, I regret selling a lot of watches. As a retailer, I have no choice. And I always have a big argument with my father that, and he always
which one do you regret not having...
He's there and he's laughing now.
Which one do you regret not having purchased, though?
Being in Dubai, we have to purchase everything because it's a multicultural city, and we have people visiting Dubai from everywhere from the world. So we have to make sure that we have everything available always. And I don't regret not buying anything. Maybe on a personal level, there are many things that I regret because we're not allowed to buy. Priority is always customers, and it's not a choice for me. Regretting to sell a lot of watches, yes, we do. We had a lot of arguments with my father. Why did we order these watches at these prices? And then 2 years later, he said, why didn't you order more of these watches? That was with a Richard Mille. So yes, there are many stories that we have, and we've seen in the past 16 years, for me at least, in the company. So yes, it's fun. A lot of regrets, but a lot of happy times. And the most important is seeing many people happy.
They're selling the watch.
Not only that, but even to
very happy
to make their dreams come true. And having many people sad, like one person sitting here, why one person got a watch and we didn't get it. So we have to balance.
I think, going back to the journey, we all sold watches we don't want to sell. I was very early. Claude knows that because I asked him many times, to help me get Epi Junes. But it's way before it was mainstream. I actually had them all. I have none of them today. So, of course, it's a regret. But what did you do with this money? What did you replace these watches with? Makes you happy or not? That's what matters. So you regret. But you'll also regret if you didn't buy the other ones, So, or you didn't buy a house, or you helped your family, or whatever reason you sold these watches. There's always a reason you're selling them. Your taste has changed, your style has changed. You need the money, or you're buying something else. So why regret,
Life is a lesson, never regret it.
Yeah, the last question. Hello?
Okay, we've had our last question, so there's another last question over there.
Choose. Come here. Few questions.
See, if you take Patek Philippe as a brand, their focus is not Nautilus or Aquanaut. It's even maybe less than 10% of their production. Patek are famous for their perpetual chronos, the ultra-thin perpetual calendars,
normal one,
the annual calendar, the Calatravas. So there is a vast options that you can go to. It's not only the Nautilus and the Aquanaut. Annual calendar to start with, I would suggest. It was a mechanism that was invented by Patek, I think now 25 years ago.
Green Nautilus.
In 1997, I think.
Yes, and they celebrated in 2017 the 20th anniversary.
5196, Calatrava.
And the 5196 if you want something even more basic,
Or
which is the history.
5940 or something that was not. I mean,
That is more maybe at the second step. To start
what about the world time chrono?
A beautiful mechanism.
And also not, I mean, hard to get, but not as hard to get as something much simpler and much more.
And it has two functions.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a watch.
3, actually, if you take the time as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, it does all sorts of things. I mean, that's a great way to wrap up this sort of session, I think, is you've got a Patek there that you can almost even get hold of, and it does quite a lot. I'd like to thank Ali so much for being here. Claude is a genius. And your metaphors, I mean, the donkeys, the fishes, the journey, the circular journey, the journey from A to Z to P to Q. Thank you all for sitting so patiently through it.
Want to tell thank you to Seddiqi family.
Of course I want to say thank
especially
you.
to Hind and
to
to the team, to Mohammed, to his team also.
And that's why I think there should be a statue of Mr. Seddiqi on every street corner.
Yeah.
Why is there, I think the big question is, why is there no Seddiqi Boulevard? Or maybe there is yet, I don't know.
No, not yet.
Not yet. But I mean, listen, we're all here. It's a marvelous thing to be at. And, you know, thank you all very much. And thank you most of all to the Seddiqis for holding it.
Thank you.